Greetings, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. Oh, what an honor being here and to chair this session dedicated to the most profound, most transformative, innovative figure in jazz, Ubabu Coltrane, John Coltrane. Before I go any further, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Uviwe Mkizwana. I'm a bass player, a composer, educator. I'm a student. I'm a PhD student at UNISA, and I'm a producer. I have 3 albums to my name. The recent one, which is Black Child, and just to add, I've just launched the Black Child Orchestra Experience, which was featured now 2 days ago at the Alter Oper Festival in Frankfurt, Germany, with Miyagi Orchestra. So let's begin. Coltrane, hey? Sure, what a name. I think for me, Master Coltrane was far more than an extraordinary saxophonist. But I view him as a seeker, an artist whose life and his musical career and works presented discipline, curiosity, spiritual depth. And through his sound, his music, his works, I think contributed significantly in shaping just the language of jazz, from harmony to rhythm, to improvisation, emotional expression, and continues to inspire musicians all across the globe, from across genres, generations. So, what makes Coltrane especially relevant today? I think is that his influence really reached far beyond his technique. I think it challenged us all as musicians, even listeners, challenged us to ask deeper questions. What are we truly saying, or what are we truly trying to say? And also, how honest are we doing it? And how far are we willing to search for the truth, and how far are we willing to search for our own voice? Today, it gives me a huge pleasure to explore these ideas with 3 remarkable artists. I mean, these are big names, and who's there? Who? I mean, when I think of these people on the panel, I could have not thought of anyone to be part of these panels. I mean, their journey continues to shape just South African jazz music in global stages. Please join me in welcoming first Mr. Kevin Davidson.
Hi, Viwe. Good to see you after a
Good,
long time.
good, good to see you, Mr. Kevin. Just to say a bit about Kevin. Kevin is my former teacher, so 80% of the knowledge I possess, it comes from this man. Truly, truly such an inspirational, a genius of note, And I mean, just to add, for those who don't know, who won't know him, I mean, he's a highly respected South African saxophonist. He's a multi-instrumentalist. I remember our ensembles, he will just pick up a guitar, start playing guitar. Monster pianist, played flute, he played everything. He's a composer, he's an arranger. Extensive creative output, He holds a BMAS cum laude from the University of Port Elizabeth, has collaborated, I mean, with one of many, many major figures, both locally and internationally, such as Winston Mangungu, Abdullah Ibrahim, Farrah Sanders. Kevin has composed over 500 works. I mean, from smaller scales to full orchestra works, has contributed so much in the music industry, into the South African jazz industry, and I mean, the education space. And I mean, the last time I saw you was a lecturer at the University of Technology for many years, and he still carries on contributing to this music industry. Welcome, Kevin, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Viwe. That's very kind of you to say so. Yeah,
Right.
I loved having you in my band. It was fantastic. That was really creative little ensemble that we had, actually.
That was. And then
Yeah.
I'd like to also introduce Mr. Linda Skakane uh, onto this panel. How are you, brother
Thank
Linda?
you. And
Oh man.
yourself.
Very well, man. Linda, a very dear friend of mine, and we've shared stage many, many, many times. And you're such, in our generation, really such an inspiration, Linda. You know, Linda has
Oh man.
become one of the leading voices in modern jazz today. And without a doubt, we'll look up to him. And I mean, you're known for your deeply spiritual and introspective approach to music, you know. Linda is a graduate as well at the
Amen.
UK, and you've done project internationally, signed to Blue Note. And I mean, for such a young artist to have those, he's also a recipient of the Standard Bank Young Award. You've played with, in fact, every high name in South Africa. You know, Bamdutuzo Makhathini Bofeya Faku, and your music remains an important discussion in
Okay.
South Africa. Yes, and this
Thank
is
you so
Linda.
much, brother, and thank you for having me. It's really an honor.
Thank you so much, man, for being here. And then our last candidate, not candidate, our panelist, Miss Shannon Modi.
Hello, Viwe.
How are you? Greetings. We've never had much had encounters really, but I think I did a string arrangement on one of your compositions for you wrote
Oh, wow.
For McCoy.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Oh, it was
yes,
you. Oh, thank
yeah,
you
it
for
was me. Yeah,
that.
yes. And of
Fantastic.
course, I've followed you everywhere. And I mean, just to say a few, Umam Shannon Mosley, of course, an internationally acclaimed saxophonist, your composer, educator, based in Norway, if I'm correct. You know, you graduate at a graduate from University of Cape Town, and then Norwegian Academy of Music, and you've built your career. I mean, you've got recognized your work in large ensembles, innovative compositions, and I mean, just your commitment to youth development stood out for me. And you're really such an important figure uh, in transporting or exporting our South African sound. And we're truly so honored to have you in this session.
Thank you, Viwe. It's fantastic to be back, even if I don't get to feel the sun.
So I think our conversation will move through a number of themes. Maybe just the first encounters of Coltrane, just the nature of his musical and spiritual influence, and how his legacy still lives within South African jazz. How artists today engage and while protecting their own originality. So we'll also reflect on like if we pedagogy and you know what Coltrane still teaches us today. I think really, and rather than like a formal lecture, I think this is intended to be like an open session, really like a discussion. We don't have to formalize anything. We have a chat, you know. And I think to start, maybe we can start with Kevin. We'll come with Linda, and then Sis Shannon. Just take us back to maybe tell us about your background in music, what made you start your inspirations, and just your encounters with Coltrane the first time. What did you hear? What stayed with you? What drew your personality to his work? I'll start with you, Kevin.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I started playing in bands when I was a kid. I
Mhm.
was playing bass in quite a few bands, and I was very into Jimi Hendrix, and I was very into Frank Zappa. So Zappa for the concept and the arrangements, and Hendrix just for the spirituality in a way. And when I heard Coltrane, um, I was in my mid-teens, and everything in my world stopped. I heard him play Lush Life, and I still haven't recovered from that. And I'm almost 70 years old now. But, he hit me with a depth. It was his sound. It sounded like truth. It sounded like this is the truth of beauty. And later on, obviously, I got into his concepts and the way he kept on moving forward. He refused to stay locked in one situation. Even the band with Elvin Jones and McCoy and Jimmy Garrison, he almost I've got this book called Coltrane on Coltrane, which is all of his interviews, and he was continually trying to push the envelope all of the time. I think sometimes it led to music that some people call unpalatable, but it was actually an expansion. But I fell in love with Coltrane, and for me, it's more how he makes me feel when I listen to him playing, especially his ballad work. And in terms of the South African thing, there's a few musicians that I played with. Winston Mankunku comes to me out of one aspect of Coltrane, and Ezra Nkogana comes out of a more cerebral part of him, and Duke Makazi is somewhere in the middle of those two. And but again, what drew me to those players was their sound. It's always the sound concept. It's something that seems to be pulling from the deepest, most true part of ourselves. And that's why I think this music will never be redundant, and I'll never stop listening to it. And I'm just so grateful for recorded sound. I was also lucky to play with Yusef Latif and Pharaoh Sanders and Howard Johnson and Rufus Reid, all musicians that actually had a personal experience with John Coltrane. So, I'd be very suspect if I had to actually tell you how much I love the essence of John Coltrane. It's been something that is stable in my life. Actually, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And for you, Linda?
Well, I come from Umlazi Township. Of course, my encounter with music comes in before I was exposed to a music school. I would say traditionally music is quite central from where one comes from. But then in terms of like studying music in a formal way, I studied with a great master in Durban, Dr. Brian Susi, who then later introduced me to an album titled Round About Midnight, which is a Miles Davis album. Somehow I just fell in love with the tenor saxophone player in the album, which is the great John Coltrane. And what really drew my attention was, of course, his sound and just his lyrical content in the way that he played the saxophone. I would then later be exposed to an album titled Yakalinkomo, which I could make connections to what I've heard on John Coltrane's music. And I think that really like made the connections even deeper, listening to Babu Winston Mankunku and listening to songs that I could relate to as, its cultural context. Then I found Coltrane to be one figure that I could possibly say they drank from the same well with the likes of Babu Winston Mankunku. Just now, Babu Davidson mentioned Babu Makasi, who was also an important figure around the same time, back in the 60s, when two seminal works were released, Yakalinkomo and of course the other album that featured Babu Makasi was Ihlupeko. So through these works, it just made sense for me to see Coltrane as a figure that is placed elsewhere, but belongs to what these masters in the continent were grappling with. And I would say, like, through the years, as a saxophone scholar and jazz scholar, I've grown to love him more because of his originality and his contributions as an innovator and always pushing forward, and also just as a member of society, because you can tell with his music, it's deeply attached to, all the cultural pillars that he grew up under, and all the factors that were surrounding, him, and that came through his music. And I guess also as a practitioner, I aspire to be someone like that is deeply in touch with what is happening around the world, but also using music as a tool to try and make this world a better place.
Oh, that's nice, man. That's nice. And for you, Ma'am Shannon?
It's wonderful to hear what you say, Kevin and Linda. I would say my relationship with Coltrane has been an interesting and complicated relationship, to say the least. I wasn't naturally drawn to him as a player. It didn't kind of go where I had that feeling. I wanted that feeling of, this is it. I grew up with a family of musicians, and we were exposed to a lot of different sounds. My dad taught at the Athlone School for the Blind in Belleville South, and the musical environments we found ourselves in were quite diverse, should I say. And then we got involved with the University of Cape Town, and then it became more about, okay, let's with the jazz program. I think I was 14 or 15 when I started playing with the university jazz program. And then, of course, this idea of jazz and my dad's from a big band swing straight kind of era. He's from UK. And then the jazz thing started going, okay, what's this thing? And then I was interested, like, okay, who are the players? What am I supposed to do? How does this work? Blah, blah, blah. And as I say, Coltrane didn't naturally draw me to him. In fact, the sound, I struggled to listen because my intellect said, you have to love Coltrane and being a jazz saxophonist. But it didn't naturally hit me when I was young. Whether that's because I'm a woman, I have no idea. But then years later, when I started writing music, I had Andre Peterson was in my band, the piano player in my band. And one day we had a discussion about Coltrane, and he said, of course, speaking in the same way you are both. And I said, I just don't understand. I don't relate to it like that. And I was being honest. If I can use, I really should. And then he said, yeah, but check this out. And he started, he said, look, dominant tonic. And we spoke about this augmented axis. And then suddenly it was, oh, wow. And again, that kind of was my way in of, there's so much here. And then I started exploring very much from a harmonic perspective. I wasn't playing tenor. I play tenor, but I'm an alto and a baritone player, essentially. So then it was a case of, okay, how do I use this? And that's the interesting thing. We all have our relations to these musicians, but it wasn't as obvious for me. It wasn't. And now, as far as harmony goes and as far as concept, I recognize also the seeker in Coltrane, and the fact that he was always seeking something and that he wasn't afraid to fail. He got so slated with the stuff with Eric Dolphy, but he was looking. That part I relate to immensely. And his ballad album, especially the ones with Duke Ellington, that is just, I can feel that. That's where I can feel it. So it's an interesting perspective to understand, okay, I really should like this, but it took me a long time to truly find, okay, where does this resonate in me as a person, as a woman, as my life experience, and how do I find myself in his world? And I have to say that it has harmonically, without realizing it, I have written so much around Coltrane with his concepts, with his ideas, without even knowing. So the impact was just as massive, just from a different direction, perhaps.
Oh, wow. I can resonate with that. I also must say I was never really drawn to him at first, or I didn't think much of it. But I remember just listening, hearing Love Supreme for the first time.
Hmm.
Something just happened, something evoked in me. I could not understand. It was more something much deeper. And then that kept me digging. And then just coming to that deeper meaning. Like just the spirituality, How do you hear the spirituality in his music? And how does that compare to your music, the spirituality in your music, if there's any, if we can talk about that. We can start, Kevin, and then we can
Yeah,
always.
okay. This is just a note for Steele, who's doing the program. When Linda spoke, I never heard a single word that he said, so I lost audio completely. But when Shannon spoke, I could hear.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to address that because I was so frustrated. I couldn't hear anything that Linda said.
Oh.
Yeah, I lost audio on my side and I checked it and there's nothing wrong. But anyway, okay. Moving on. In terms of spirituality in sound, Coltrane wasn't just influenced by Africa and he was also influenced by India as well. He loved Ravi Shankar, for example, and I think that's what he was searching for. Pharaoh Sanders said that Coltrane had this whole drawer of mouthpieces that he would raid every now and then, because he was obsessed with sound all the time. And I think the spirituality side of it comes out of many aspects of him. If you listen to his Live at Birdland album, you can hear the African repetition going on in the bridge of some of the ballads, and I think he was very influenced by Africa, and as a result, he influenced Africa. Most of the tenor players that I grew up with, Coltrane was actually pretty big in their life, but not really the giant steps Coltrane or the countdown Coltrane or any that side of him. It was more a feeling of what he evoked in them. And funnily enough, when I used to hear Winston Mankunku live, that same thing would hit me. It was that same deep feeling of sound that you just when Winston was playing, I never wanted him to stop. It's just the depth of his tonal projection, and I think as a horn player, I love all the horns, but like Linda, I'm probably more of a tenor player than and soprano than an alto player like Shannon, but. I always chase for a big sound, but that is slightly moist but still has edge. That's the only way I can put it. And every now and then, 5 minutes in a practice session, you may hit that thing, and then it goes again. And I think that's what jazz is. Jazz is continually searching. As Jackie McLean said, it would be my finish to be stuck in one bag, And Coltrane is a good example of that for musicians. So to me, the sound color of the instrument has a big influence on how the depth at which the music grabs me. Yeah. I don't know what to add to that. Yeah.
No, I hear you. No, I hear
Yeah.
you. And for you, Shannon, what would you?
I mean, the interesting thing for me is also Alice Coltrane's effect on Coltrane in terms of spirituality. I mean, the Indian connection also came greatly from her, and they studied together of other religious aspects. I think spirituality, it's an interesting word. What does it mean? But
Yes.
you know what I do again. What I kind of think about in terms of is rather sound not using the word sound, but resonance. And I
Yes.
think the resonance of a person with their instruments is what we hear. That's this. I feel this. I know when I'm resonating with myself, my sound is wonderful, and if I'm not, it sounds like shit. Sorry for that word, but it's like, and maybe that's the spirituality or the truth, that you're able to find that thing in you, and maybe that's the thing we relate to when some players just hit us, and other players just, as I say, maybe their resonance relates to our resonance. That's in the notes and also in the manner of expression.
Yes.
And I think the thing about Trane was why do we why is he so big? Maybe the fact that he spoke his truth is what we're actually relating to, not what he came out of the horn. And that's for me, the spiritual aspect is that something in him was resonating at its highest level. So we think it's him or we think it's his sound, but actually, I mean, it's the combination of something, the flow between horn and what came out was pure and true for him. And that certainly is what I seek in myself, that I want that truth. It doesn't mean I should sound like him. I mean, I think that's the misconception, that a lot of people go out and buy his setup or his horn and I'm going to sound like Coltrane. And that's where you've missed the point. He sounded like him, the resonance of his body. He was a tall man. How he used his throat, all of those things. That's why he sounded how he did. But essentially it was that he was resonating with himself. That's what I get out of this word spirituality or resonance as I see it.
That's really, really interesting. And for you, Linda, what would be your take on this spirituality and sound?
Wow. I mean, Shannon Mode has touched on two important points, which is resonance and the truth. And I deeply resonate with that as well. And I struggle to see the difference or to separate the two, music and spirituality, because I mean, for you to produce music, it has to come from within. So I'll just say by default, you are like in that spiritual realm in producing music. So I guess these two maestros have covered quite a lot, and I wouldn't say much about that, since they've covered quite a bit.
Okay. Kevin, can you hear Linda now?
Yes, no, that was perfect. I'm so relieved. Thank you. Thanks, Linda. Yes, and I agree with you totally. Yeah.
I really, really agree with that statement. And so I'm trying to think in a South African context, I'm trying to find, how did his influence enter South Africa? I mean, directly or indirectly. And if we can discuss how were these influence then incorporated to some of South African jazz. It could be like from artists, or it could be from your own experience, just in a South African context, just comparing these influences of Coltrane. Whoever.
I can start by saying, I mean, I haven't lived in South Africa. It's been 16 years now. But I mean, certainly when I was growing up, I mean, I played quite a lot in some setups with Winston, and I mean, that's the most obvious for me. But I know also when I was teaching for quite a period at the university in Cape Town, I mean, some of those young musicians like Sisonke, who came out, I mean, I hear it there. I hear in the ones I've kind of followed, but I can't comment beyond that. In terms, I certainly know I am, as I say, compositionally, I am, he's all over my work, but I can't really say much more because I really don't know. And Kevin, of course, and Linda, I mean, of course, you can hear that in the influence, but and certainly Winston was a very big, and he, I mean, isn't it interesting how he took so much of that in him, but it wasn't, he had his thing. It wasn't Coltrane. It was
Oh, yeah.
it was the essence of. But I mean, Winston was a fantastic example of a truth teller for me.
Yes, if I could just step in there with Winston, because you know, his album Yakal and Como, which is still such a masterpiece, and the guys were so young when they played on that album. I can't believe it. They were all in the early 20s. But if you listen to the track Dedication, that is pure Coltrane. It's a 2-chord vamp, and it's so the Coltrane equivalent would be
Impressions.
yes,
Impressions.
Impressions. I was thinking of So What by Miles, which is also another 2-chord thing, but it has that aspect. And Winston, I think, was more influenced by Coltrane's sound, but some of his lines are more bird or bebop oriented. You know, you can't put him squarely at Coltrane's door. You know, as Shannon said, he was very much his own guy. You know, and he would always shape his solos differently. I think everything he got was from an oral perspective. Winston is not a studying, reading musician. He's the opposite of that, you know. The more cerebral player to me was Duke McCuzzy, the late Duke McCuzzy, and also Ezra Kogana. You know, there you can hear the more intellectual transformation of Coltrane. Obviously, they listened to a lot of. When I was a kid in PE, I used to hang with the guys that were the soul. They were called the soul jazzmen, and Winston Mankunku was actually always discussed by them. I'm thinking of Dudley Tito and Whitey Mitchell and Pius Vinceli and those guys, and basically we had 2 topics of conversation, and that was Coltrane and Winston Mankunku, you know. And so the influence it permeates all styles, all musicians, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm hoping that in 50 years' time, it's still going to be there, because that's the beauty of recorded sound. We are so lucky to hear these people that have passed on. And to allow them to guide us. So Shannon, I could understand everything you said in terms of your growing up, and I knew Bob, your dad, well, and I did quite a few gigs with him, and the environment and everything. But I think, you know, for me, Coltrane grabbed me. As I say, the intro to Lush Life when I was 15, that was it. I'm not saying I stopped searching and there's many musicians that I love. But for example, someone that's not influenced by him, how about Cannonball Adderley, that used to stand side by side with Coltrane on alto, and his playing had nothing to do with Trane. But he was so strong in himself and his own conception and his own sound that he could follow a Trane solo, and within 10 minutes you'd forgotten that Trane even played. You know, there's very few guys that could actually pull that off. So yeah, it's very much a thing of the musician. We have to study and we have to transcribe and we have to look at what happened. Coltrane did the same. His big influence was Rabbit, Johnny Hodges. And he always had to go into the past to actually find the way forward in the future. And I think every musician has to go through that. So we need to find our own voice, but we study other voices to learn the language in a way. But ultimately, it's our own path that we have to tread.
I like that. And for you, Linda?
Wow, man, he was such a big influence, and as you know that in South Africa we speak about, you know, icons like Babu Winston Mankunku and Babu Chuk Makasi as people that had a similar voice, and I think that the I would like to think that this kind of influence comes a deeper place and just from one artist listening to another.
Yeah.
I think there is there's some level of collective memory where people were searching for something, and through that searching, they would like find some similarities as to what kind of voice each artist could try and achieve. And I sense that a lot, because if we think how these artists could move, it's not like how people can travel nowadays. It's not like there was technology that could, allow for people to hear one another. But somehow there are some similarities with just the that age group, or just similarities around the period. But these artists were not even like crossing paths, but these similarities. So I think it's really, deeper than what one could like find. And what comes to mind is a collective memory, and also like kindredship, similar visions, and trying to achieve similar things. Because if you think of the music, what it served at a particular time, people were trying to find themselves. The diaspora, they were trying to connect to the continent. And also with the continent, they were trying to, seek help, as people were trying to, find freedom through music, and also just trying to preserve culture. So I think it stems from this idea of, seeking for positivity through music, and I think collective memory comes to the fore. That's the kind of influence I think,
That makes a lot of sense. And I think I'm gonna come to young musicians today, or students. What remains essential in studying Coltrane? I mean, if I was a student, like, or starting up, and I want to learn about Coltrane, where do I start? Do you have any recommendations? Why would you want me? Why would you recommend me to studying Coltrane?
Well, I think in terms of inquiry, it's important to study. And someone like Coltrane, through the years, he covered many aspects that remain to be, concepts that are useful in music. Of course, as an innovator, he created systems, and systems that stem from other systems. And I think he remains relevant because of that, because of his contributions. And we've seen artists like over the years using the very same systems and applying those systems in their very own way. So I think Coltrane is a portal that we can sort of like access and find our own ways of moving with those kind of systems.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a cat amongst the pigeons. One of the interesting things about, this is what's youth education and jazz, and how we learn jazz. How do we absorb this history that is there? And perhaps, maybe it is complicated because I am a woman, and I never saw myself in the history. And that is it's something that we have to recognize. We have to understand that as much as I would copy, I would transcribe, and I would learn and what have you. And it never stayed with me because there wasn't a true connection. And this is where the point, and whether we talk about, I love this idea of the collective consciousness, but this word love, your essential connection to music is out of curiosity, is because it just reaches you. But if it doesn't reach you in the same way, is it then important to say this figure needs to be the one that you study? Of course, the question I would say is, what is possible for me to relate to in this expression? as a woman, as a South African, I mean, one of the tendencies I find in education is you have to study Coltrane, learn all these solos, da 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 da, and then you're just playing the notes. And this idea of reading biographies, of course, if you relate to it, it makes sense. But what happens if you just don't relate to it? And I struggled a lot with the South African jazz, the way it was taught, with this kind of idea of copy and paste, and you'll use this lick, because it just didn't make sense to me. While I understood this is a good way of learning tools, for instance. But like, for instance, in Norway, our focus is generally on the individual first, and what tools can we get to complement that. It's a little bit of a different thing. It's not to say, and of course, I mean, as I say, I use Coltrane in everything, but it would be a point of, hey, check this out. Is this interesting for you? Yes, and then you explore it, as opposed to first going, these are the icons, this is what you should check out. It needs to come from a point of curiosity. So of course Coltrane is relevant. How he chose, I mean, the augmented access, I mean, the Slinimsky thesaurus of scales outlines all of this. We can look at it from any point of view. How he, my question is always, okay, check how, or the way I put it is, check how Coltrane solved that puzzle. Isn't that incredible? As opposed to, and then you can go, oh, that's a way to solve the puzzle, but ultimately it's about, how do I solve the puzzle? It's, I mean, it's an interesting point of view, because you're just shifting the narrative. We're saying the same thing, but shifting the narrative a little bit. That's my thought on it. And especially, I feel with South Africa, you know, there is so much diversity and so many different socioeconomic factors to take into account. And I feel there's enough in every individual to tell a different story, but kind of from the point of view of, oh, what's been in the jazz history? How can I use that to express my story? Which is again why I talk about this resonance of Coltrane, that I think was, he spoke his truth. That's what is relevant. Sorry, a little diversion.
No, that's very insightful. And for you, Kevin?
Yeah, no, that's very important. Everything that Shannon said. It's jazz is, if someone is intent on transcribing what someone else is doing, then I have no objection to that, as long as they don't parrot. No one's going to play Bird better than Bird. You know, so but it's good to understand that this was his concept that led him to arrive at that line, because that you can now take into your own playing. And I think that is the only positive thing to come out of transcribing, is to get the oral universe that person was using. What did they tap into to actually create that? And how can I bring that into my playing? If, as you say, Shannon, you feel you want it in your playing, or it's necessary or vital to your playing. But, the music process is like that. And we have these icons, but there are many other musicians that I really love and I listen to deeply that aren't on that icon list at all. Because I'm getting different things from them. Jan Gabarek gives me something that Coltrane doesn't. And I'm not saying the one's better than the other, or comparing, because that does no one any service at all. I'd hate to compare Phil Woods with Charlie Parker, with Sonny Stitt, with Cannonball Adderley, in terms of being better. It's just that they had different ways of expressing themselves on the instrument. And I think people mustn't lose sight of that it's an individual path that everyone has to trod. And at some point, you've got to be your own person, and you've got to look for your own sound. Or else, as Shannon says, you're just regurgitating out notes. There's a difference between playing notes and feeling notes. Yeah.
I get that. And if I may ask, just to keep these conversations going, in the industry, what do you think the industry needs in your own way, just to keep these conversations going, and also just to make sure we allow for platforms for the younger generation to enter this space, to entice them with this industry? What are some of challenges, and what do you think solutions may be, or like strategies we can implement? I mean, this could be a local and a international question, you know, global, both South Africa and global.
Wow.
Wow,
I'm
this
going to
is
throw that
this
out
is
to my colleagues because that's a toughie. You know, I mean, because I'm hearing it coming from different directions. That answer, you know, it's a question of what do people want, or what do they need, and I don't want to get prescriptive or anything, but I think people just need to be honest in what they're listening to, and they need to feel that resonance that Linda and Shannon are talking about. That is so important. Music is the most astonishing thing. It's vibration through the air, and it hits our cochlea, and there's a whole lot of non-harmonic partial tones that get trapped in there, and you know, it's the most wonderful thing. The fact that our ears can actually allow us to talk to each other in the first place. So yeah, I just think people need to be honest about when they listen to something, about whether it's really grabbing them, or they're listening to it because they were told that they're going to enjoy it. You know, and I definitely know when I hear something, whether I want to see how it evolves, or whether it's so predictable that I almost know what's going to happen next. You know, and then that makes me tone down a little. Yeah, I don't know how you feel, Linda.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Babu Davidson, and it's so interesting that you speak about the consumers, that they should be honest about what they hear. And I would like to say that I would like project the same energy to the practitioners as well, because you know there's so much happening in the industry and there's so much loudness, and I guess the only way out is to be as original as possible and honest as possible, because if you portraying something, it's best to be honest about it, so that the people that deeply resonate with what you do follow, so that you have followers that are really like following what you do. So I think, of course, the industry changes all the time, and one has to just find their space within the change and just doing what makes you comfortable, rather than, you know, following all these changes up until you don't even have, you know, like some kind of base that really represents who you are.
I have to also, I mean, agree totally. I mean, this thing of seeking the truth and understanding that your truth is as relevant, if not more relevant, than a Coltrane's truth. That not to say not put. I mean, I think one of the problems is we tend to think of these people above us, but they were like us. You know, we are just different versions. Everybody's a different version of a Coltrane or a Parker or any of these greats. But what they did was, again, we've pushed record on what they did, but what, like for instance, this going back to this word resonance, it's much more about, are you at peace with yourself? You know, we talk about the world and it's in chaos and what have you. I know when I'm not practicing and I'm not on top of my horse, I'm a horrible person. I'm grisly as hell. It's my duty as a creative person to take care of my own creativity and let that, whatever, again, goodness project. And there we talk about the effect we can have on the world and peace, and the things that are valuable to us is if we take care of our own creativity, if we're nurturing this, we exude that, we give off that peace. The same thing you're talking about, Linda. I mean, the level of honesty we can talk with is the level of honesty and peace we can also project. As I feel as creators, we are peacekeepers. Not peacekeepers, but as much as we can raise issues, we can also just resonate. And that I learned, I mean, very much from working with Sibongile Khumalo. I mean, she for me was the greatest peacekeeper, the way she just was herself, and you were drawn to this. You wanted to be part of it. And that was also because of the truth she told. I found more about myself working with her than anyone, about be okay with yourself first. Work on that. And that is what you project. I didn't need a Coltrane. I needed a Sibongile to help me with that. So these people and these situations are around us as well. That's, you know, it's not out there. It's not, you know, this American ideal or whatever. We have it amongst us and with our people we work with. Yeah, that's just my take on it.
And do any of you think that jazz is well represented? Are there enough platforms to, you know, display this art form? Do you feel like it was better then? Is there a brighter future now? What are your thoughts on the evolution of it, where it is, you know, right now, if it makes sense?
Well, I think there is a better future for it. It is well represented. Of course, there are struggles with platforms, but I think as creative as well as we are, this is one part that we need to be creative about, as how do we create more platforms? How do we create visibility for this music? But the future of it is bright. We've seen just the surge of, you know, young jazz lovers. I mean, both from practitioners and also consumers. And I think South African jazz has a place in the global, you know, spheres. So I think the future is really bright for this music. It's just a matter of holding hands together as a community to try and see the changes in the world. How do we then find ways of being visible within the changes that are happening?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of my situation in an hour's time. I'm working with a 10-piece band of students, and they are just so gorgeous, and I just love them to bits. And I can't wait to hear Lux, our pianist, what he's going to come up with next. And I feel very privileged to be able to guide them. I'm not saying that I'm saying to you, this is how you play or this is what you must play, but maybe I can help them with shaping what they're playing and with getting in touch with what they're hearing, you know. And I've worked with young students all my life, as you well know, Viwe, and it's my nourishment, and that's how I learn. They teach me so much, you know. So that to me is the warmth of where things are going to come from. Is I feel just privileged to be able to shape a little bit of what they do. A lot of what they do, they're going to have to find out for themselves. But maybe I can help them with approaches that they may find beneficial for themselves, and that to me is my role at the moment, you know. And so as you ask that question, I'm already looking forward to working with the future of jazz in a way, you know. Yeah.
I have to just add to that, you know, I mean, I've been teaching all around the world. It's my thing. I love working with young people as well. And for me, it's very interesting also using composition as a tool to bring people together that maybe wouldn't be, and changing the narratives around how, you know, for instance, the jazz tradition, especially in large ensemble, it doesn't have to be just this person playing a solo or whatever. And I try and find, how do I bring you in? And then for me, the composition is a tool. But I have to say that I think the raw material of talent and stories to tell in South Africa is immense, more so than I've seen anywhere else. And that's no disrespect to anywhere else. The stories that South African jazz musicians have to tell is really strong. And I think the more that truth can come out, then feel this need to, we need to be like American jazz artists or European jazz artists and stick. I mean, Linda, you are a perfect example of somebody who's active and out there and representing. And, you know, I think the more that the person is themselves, I think South African jazz is, I mean, the narrative has also changed from South African jazz that left. Living in Europe, there's a kind of conceived idea of jazz sticking with the, you know, the 60s of the music that left. There's very little understanding of what's happening right now. And I feel that needs more exposure of the current South African jazz scene, not one from the wonderful artists that left South Africa, especially in Europe.
Oh no, thank you so much. These have been so insightful, and we've come to the end of the session. I would just like to extend my gratitude to you, to three of you. You've been amazing, and thank you so much, and thank you for being for your time, your generosity, your for sharing your mind, sharing your thoughts, and you're really such important people to the industry, to the world, and we truly appreciate you all three. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you enjoy the rest of the day. I'd also like to extend gratitude to the South African Association for Jazz Education, Cape Town International Jazz for hosting such platforms like this. We really need such conversations. To the UKZN University of KwaZulu-Natal, the Center of the Creatives, the KZN Performing Arts. Thank you so much to everyone who's also joined in the stream. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay.
Cheers.